He's a loudmouth. Usman said of McGregor when speaking to ESPN, he's a guy that can compete, but he's not the champion, Conor McGregor. He's not the double champion. He's not that guy anymore. He's just a guy that's in the UFC. If he wasn't Conor, hasn't done the things that he's done, he would just be a regular fight. The level of respect he gets now, he's just a regular fighter with a lot of money and a lot of hype and recognition. The old Conor, the hungry Conor, that was the fighter the fighters respected. Now that we don't respect him anymore, he's still a UFC fighter, but just a regular fighter. Loudmouth, just a loudmouth, Usman said of McGregor. He does more talking than he does fighting. Conor McGregor's not someone I ever worry about. If he wants to fight me, he knows where to find me. He can call me and we'll make the fight happen. End quote. Wow. There's a lot on that. There's a lot on that for me because that is the best I've ever seen anybody come at Conor McGregor. Reason for that wasn't a game. What I just read to you, what Usman just said, that was just real. That was just Usman talking. He is not pining for a fight. He is not looking for attention. He was not being dismissive as a way of getting a different approach. That was just Usman answering a question off the top of his head and coming from his heart. You take that how you want. I'm sharing with you, red panty night is still a very real thing, and people sit around all the time and they try to strategize, how can I get the attention of Conor McGregor? Usman did none of those things. There was no strategy in that. There was no gamesmanship in that. And that might be the most interesting thing I've ever heard anybody say about Conor McGregor. And it's the truth that hurts, right? And there is a lot of truth in that. I mean, what do we know, guys? Basic life. What do we know? Anything that goes up must come down. We know this to be true. And that's all Usman's speaking to. He's saying, man, this guy used to be the double champion, but he's not now. This guy used to be the UFC champion, but he's not now. He's still running his mouth and talking like he did when he did all of those things. I used to really respect those things. I used to sit back and see and be impressed with how much success he was having, but he's not having that success anymore, and he's still saying the same stuff, and that's annoying to me. I'm paraphrasing. That's what Usman just said. That's interesting. And that one's going to sting a little bit because it's the truth that hurts. That one's going to sting a little bit. Being called just one of the fighters by the champion? I mean, it's one of these things. And before you think, well, Chael, why are we even discussing Usman and Conor McGregor? I think that fight is as likely as any fight. I really do, and I always have. I thought Masvidal versus Conor was a no-brainer that we would see someday. Just for example, we've seen Conor fight at 170. We know Conor likes weird challenges like this, and we know Conor likes championship matches. We are led to believe if Conor beats Dustin, that Conor will then draw into Oliveira. Says who? Says who? Think about it from Conor's perspective, because that's the only perspective that's going to matter in this. The only one that we need to know, hey, what do you want to do, is to Conor. So imagine that Conor gets the jump on Dustin. Conor now becomes the number one contender. For what belt? That is a media creation, and we are led to believe that. But Conor's never once said, after I fight Dustin, I'm going to fight the winner of Oliveira and Chandler. Or even more recently, after I beat Dustin, I'm going to go fight Oliveira. So go ahead and wait for me. He's never said that. So imagine you are Conor. You become number one contender. Where do you want to play that card if it's your choice? And for nobody would it be their choice. But I think that it would be for Conor. So look at the shoes that he's in. Okay, I'm going to go do a tough night's work. What's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that can happen is I'm going to get my ass kicked. Would I rather have my ass kicked out of the weight class, taking a bigger risk against Usman, or would I rather have my ass kicked within the weight class by Oliveira? Both are going to be big fights. One is going to be a bigger fight. I'm just offering the other side of this coin for you that. This was not a call out that I just read for you by Usman, not on purpose. It is a call out. It's a straight call out. It just wasn't meant to be. There was no game being played there. That was Usman getting asked a question that I can tell he was not prepared for. He did not make it eloquent. He did not make it funny. He did not make it charming. He didn't make it anything. He answered the question straight. It just happens to be one of the more compelling things that's ever been said, and there's some truth to it, which is going to sting. What goes up must come down. Conor was on fire. I'm telling you guys, like it or not, Red, he's still the guy. He is still the guy. He's not what he once was. He's still above what all the rest of them are. And he's not going to love this. He's not going to be crazy about this. Now, how he goes about that, I don't know. There's only a couple of options. Beat Dustin, beat Oliveira, go for champ again, but this time it's after Kamaru's, or pass over Oliveira in the first place. And for Conor to come to the table and expect something from his partner, of which Oliveira has not provided and is not going to provide, is going to be a real thing. And Conor's going to consider that. Conor's going to consider, what is this going to look like? What is the buildup for this going to be? We're going to have audience back in. I sell houses out. And I sell them out for big gates that get disclosed publicly. Look, these are thoughts that nobody else would have to deal with. These are thoughts that Conor has. He's very competitive in all aspects. He's looking around to make sure that building's full. He's reading the release to see how much the commission took in and got their 6% of. He wants to know that he's got the biggest gates. I only bring that to you because Usman and McGregor's not off the table. And not only is it not off the table, McGregor and Oliveira is not on the table. That's tomorrow's problem. And there's a big roadblock in front of all of this named Dustin Poirier. So I realize that we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're talking about talking. We're talking for the sake of talking. But all I got over here is a microphone. Why not talk? Why not do a little talking? And I do think that's a compelling fight, by the way. I mean, before we get into the X's and O's of it, I do think Conor McGregor, I think the single best performance he's ever had was that against Donald Cerrone. I bring that to you because that was at 170 pounds. I think there's parts of Conor's game, and they're not the championship rounds. They aren't the latter part of the fight, but I think there are parts within Conor's game that he does better at 170. I really think that. Usman's a rough night out. Sure he is. But before you think that's going to stop Conor from doing something, if you juxtapose that with Oliveira's a tough night out. And so many times as fans, you'll try to guess what Conor's going to do, but it's really an inflection of what you would do. You are saying, oh no, I'm scared of Usman. I believe you. You should be scared of Usman. That doesn't mean Conor is. Conor can have a very realistic conversation with himself and acknowledge these guys are both tough guys. Both of these guys can beat me. If I do things right, I can beat both of them. Both of them can beat me. Which one saves face to lose to more than the other? That's real. I don't imagine that's going to be the deciding factor for Conor McGregor or even a large slice of the pie. But it's a piece of the pie nonetheless. What you just got here organically from Usman on accident, which Usman did not even mean to make headlines with. He was annoyed with the question and trying to get back to topic. I mean, I still got the print right in front of me. He's a loudmouth. He's just a guy that's in the UFC. If he wasn't Conor McGregor and hadn't done the things that he had done, so speaking in past tense, that's very dismissive. He would just be a regular fight. Oh, that is very mean. And it wasn't on purpose. It just was how the champ felt. But what I'm reading for you and what I'm sitting down breaking down for you that Usman did on accident is more than Oliveira on purpose will ever do. It's just the side of it. And Conor McGregor offers something different. Conor McGregor has a different set of skills. The commodity of all fighters is the performance in the fight, with one exception, which is Conor McGregor. He has a different commodity that he brings. And he's going to be looking for different things in a partner than other guys look for. Look, he's got to get through Dustin Poirier, or this whole thing is a mute topic. Dana might come in and say, no, you're not going after Kamaru either. You got business and it's right here with Oliveira. But Dana might not. He might not. And finding guys to fight Usman is very tricky. Finding guys at 155, we got all sorts of studs. We've got all sorts of studs. At 170, we have a very clear champion. We have a very clear number one contender in Covington. It then drops off. There's a meaningful gap between the two guys I just named and your champion and your number one contender, Usman and Covington, and the field. It's meaningful. Not that way at 155. That thing's going to be musical chairs. Those guys are so good and so competitive. until Chimaev can come in and really establish himself, until Leon Edwards can go in and get that one good win. 170 is a little bit thin. I would very much be comfortable in telling you guys if, right, this is futuristic. We still got Poirier. If Dana is confronted with, where do I want to use Conor? And who else am I going to put with Usman? Who else am I going to put with Oliveira? He's going to answer the question of who to put with Oliveira a lot easier, which adds a little bit of legs to what I'm telling you, that it is an outside shot, but it's shot nonetheless. We're going to see McGregor and Usman.